following is a presentation of Learfield IMG College. From the Georgia Southern Sports Network, powered by Learfield IMG College.
Wings up, Eagle Nation! Touchdown, Georgia Southern!
This is Inside Eagle Nation, your all-access look into Eagle athletics.
Taking a look through all the other action in Georgia Southern athletics this past week. A lot of road action. A lot of teams hitting the old I-16 out of town.
Getting on the steel horse and taking us to parts north, south, west, wherever. Can't really go too much farther east.
Now let's return to the Learfield IMG College studios. Here are your hosts, Colin Lacy and Danny Reed.
That's a fact, Jack.
Welcome into another edition of Inside Eagle Nation here from Allen E. Paulson Stadium. Colin Lacy alongside the voice of the Eagles, Danny Reed, as we dive into episode number 143. It's going to be a fun one. It's going to be an exciting one. We've got a very special, a couple of very special guests. Only one of them can put the mic on. But going to be
joined. It's not the one you were thinking about.
No,
either.
It's not. It's not. So we welcome in our guest this week, Steve Hein, the Executive Director of the Wildlife Center on campus. Steve, appreciate you joining us.
I'm glad to finally be here. This is a delight.
Well, this is the first time we're on Monday nights now. There's going to be a lot of programming that's changing over the course of the next couple of weeks and months. The very first Monday night live show. So not just you, Freedom here.
Hey, you have made my day. Thank you both so very, very much.
Absolutely.
And delighted to be here with you.
You've been a big part of the football game day. Everybody calls Freedom's Flight the most exciting 30 seconds in sports. Take us through how everything got started of when was the first flight? How did it come to be? Was it you taking it to athletics coming to you? How did that all come about of being Freedom's Flight?
Well, and a good starting point, I would say, but in truth, the fact that we even have an eagle at Georgia Southern, we make the natural tie-in, to our mascot and school logos and all that good stuff. But to have a live eagle, and I tell this story often, and the true stories are always the best. It ties back to football specifically. And our patron saint, if I'm allowed to say that, that one Irk Russell, we all might know him. And
look, his head's in the end zone, so yeah, he's the patron saint.
He's everywhere. But the fact of the matter is, and these are the things that make my career and my job so dear, is that in 1990 we were in a playoff game and had a bird fly over, and it was on national television, I guess, and it was during an intermission. They were trying to fill up some time, and I guess they put the camera on it. I've seen the video. It's still archived somewhere. And on that fateful day, it turned out to be a turkey vulture. So if we're talking about Freedom or the Wildlife Center, it's, I love vultures. I mean, it took a vulture to fly over for someone. And a gentleman had the idea and said, hey, Steve, can we get an eagle at Georgia Southern? So a little background story there. It was 5 presidents ago, and I think everybody got on board, and we raised some funding. It was originally, let me sidebar yet again, is that it was originally going to be just a little cupola of sorts, or something at beautiful Sweetheart Circle, and yet here we have a wonderful wildlife center. So the impetus was to build something around it. I think the university took the right tact to it. If we're going to, really possess something highly regulated as a bald eagle, our national symbol, let alone our school mascot, we got to make it educational. It's like, oh, okay. So but at that time, 1992 to be exact, we put in a request to get an eagle, to right that great travesty from 1990, and it took 14 years to get his truly right here, because we're on a waiting list. And the reason for that is simply that any eagle, and I think we're all on board here, is if they're healthy, they need to be in the wild. And the laws mandated. This is one of the most protected animals in all of North America and probably around the world. 2 acts of Congress actually protect this species. So we're on this waiting list, and we get a call, and I remember quite vividly getting the call in 94, I think. We got him in 1997. Anyway, we get the call that here's your bird. We had been waiting, at the time or date wasn't right, but anyway, we waited 14 years, and he's now 15 years old, to get an eagle that was deemed to be non-releasable and yet fully flighted. So we had other eagles, but that's how Freedom came to be.
Was it one of those that it was kind of a undetermined amount of time that you would be waiting, so you didn't know that call was coming, or did you kind of have an idea of a timeline?
No, we had none. We were at the mercy of fish and wildlife, and in fact, and that's why I said the timeline, I apologize, was off. We actually had built the center. It was open. We opened the center in 1997, so it was years later. And quite frankly, I remember going, this is a pretty good gig. We got a wildlife center. It was 4.5 acres. We're doing our shtick, and we're flying birds. We're educating the public. No real pressure to fly it on a given Saturday. I was like, maybe I can scoot on my 28 years I've been here, but fate would not allow that to be. It's like, no, we got your eagle. And no, it was, there's so much competition to get an eagle, across our country. And I think there's 7 different regions within U.S. Fish and Wildlife. And so, even among that, there's a little politics involved. And so this one came down in our region, which was in Florida. And there's more eagles in Florida than any other state other than Alaska. And
Would not have thought that.
Yeah. Well, all the water, if you think about it. Eagles are always attached to water. Yeah. So we got the call, and it was then Dr. Gruby. So we're talking about several presidents ago. And I remember making the call up to the president's office, say, I think they're, U.S. Fish and Wildlife said they have one located. It's a young bird. If you want it, come get it. And so I don't know why I necessarily called him, although I guess I needed presidential proof. but I remember, statutes of limitations are he's since retired and did so much for Georgia Southern, but he in so many words said, go and go now. And I literally left, I got the call by noon and I was gone by 5. It was in Maitland, Florida, and we were picking it up because, again, the amount of pressure to have an eagle that's flight capable but non-releasable, and we'll get into that, I'm sure, was really the driver. And so really that was when we punched the clock. It was like, okay, now how big a fellow are you? Because now you got to train them. It's like, that's what really did start it.
So you said he's 15 technically?
Yeah.
Do you have a birthday party for him? How do you determine his birthday, or is that even something you can determine?
I don't know that we can. We've got some of the data because of the nature of this bird. They monitor, and there's a science part of this question, and then the humorous. Which one do we want to go for? They monitor all eagle nests as best. They're off the endangered. They're off the threatened list. We had no nesting pair in the state of Georgia in 1983, but they've come back. They're really doing quite well. But they're still a species of concern. They still monitor them. So this bird, Freedom, his history was outside of Maitland, Florida, where they have a rehab facility down there. But somebody who worked at the facility actually had a nesting pair right above her driveway. And she had monitored that. And she gets up one morning, and there's this big, probably 2 feet tall brown ball of fur. And that was Freedom. And they whisked her in. They realized there was a damage to his beak. Either one, and this is an often asked question, is what happened to the beak once they identify that he's kind of scissor-beaked. Either birth defect, but because there was also a puncture, an injury, it was more than likely, I would conjecture, what we call Cain-and-Abel syndrome. So if you've got mom and dad that are inept and not bringing enough groceries for whatever reason, and you've got a female and a male, 2 nestlings, female being a third larger, hatched first, she's looking at the younger brother going, don't take it personally, but Cain-and-Abel syndrome. Why should we both suffer and die? So he may have actually been grabbed by an older sibling, a female, jettisoned himself out of the nest, landed in the driveway. We get the call and said, he's got an injury that is going to be permanent. And our next on the list is this Georgia Southern University, the Steve Hein guy. And that's been 15 years ago.
When you started this journey here at Georgia Southern and finding the Wildlife Center, building it from the ground up, did you have any idea it would become what it is today?
No, I still am in disbelief. And as I jokingly said, but there's nothing about it which is a joke. Everything about my life has been an accident. This is an accidental career, and I can claim very little credit. I'm eternally thankful to, obviously, the university who gave me, a blank canvas, literally, in terms of the property, and then the great many people who are, you talk about true blue. We were talking, Danny, a little earlier about what does it mean to be true blue. I can tell you from my perspective who they are. I'll give you that list a little bit later, but it'll cost you a little bit. It'll be a donation to the Wildlife Center in care of Freedom. No, it's all legit. I'm talking straight up. But no, anyway. The fact of the matter is that that happened, and I can't tell you how many times I'm approached, and it's always quite flattering in phone calls, and it's usually is this Dr. Hein? And immediately it's like, yes, it is. It's like, no, I'm lucky I got a diploma, and Georgia Southern kicked me off with a finance degree. But all things in due course and the connectivity. So it all really worked well. And I jokingly have said over the years that I'm in the business of wildlife, and you know, you folks are in the business of athletics. It doesn't mean it's not a business. You love athletics, but it's a business. If you can't do it, and I would, you know, liken the same to the environment and certainly the Wildlife Center. So, no, it's been an incredible ride, and as I mentioned earlier, I'm of age and I've got my years, and yeah, I'm enjoying it, and I'd like to see myself here, and as long as he keeps doing what he's supposed to do, maybe I'll be here for a good while yet. Yeah.
Being so much a part of the game day, and I know it's not just show up and fly. There's a lot of preparation that goes into the 30 seconds that people see on the game day. Take us through, and I know it's a couple of times a week you're doing practice flights, and Scott was telling me earlier you let us come out, and Danny went down on the field with you. I went on the roof with Scott, who has been a long-time partner with you. Take us through what that looks like from kind of preparing to do Freedom's Flight.
Well, you know, we at this point, and we've done it now, what is it, our 15th year or thereabouts, but I think our spring practice is not that different. And I do that, you know, for the same reasons I think football does what it does. I mean, you've got muscle memory, you've got all these things, these cues and reading cues and things like that. So part of it is just doing your due diligence so that you can account for whatever happens on the field. You know, we've done our practice flights, so you do that. But you know, at this many years into it, I think I do it as much for me, just to make sure it's like, okay, I've done this. Please, you know, baby Jesus, would you fly for me or whatever? Because everybody does, and I'm making light of it. But if we do our job well, and I'm sure it speaks for you folks and others, you know, being a part of athletics, kind of on the peripheral, is no one should know. No one should have any idea. And I said earlier, Danny, when we were talking about the football field, I remember the grass fields, and that's an ongoing debate. But you know, there was so much more maintenance to it, and yet people don't come to the stadium and go, "My God, look at that green grass, honey! Would you look at that? Could you give me the recipe? How do you make that green?" You know,
I think Roger still does.
Yeah,
well,
we can get you that.
Well, and I forgot about our second patron saint. We have a lesser saint in Roger. You know, a little skewed.
First time Roger's ever been called a saint.
Well, you know, I'm cleaning it up for our audience. But the point is, I think he used to. Well, I'm not even going to go there. But I'll pass on it. But I know what the secret ingredient is. That's my point. But anyway, back to the field, and it just was fascinating to watch all that, and so. You know, to see him do it, I'm taking a lot of things into account and things that people don't really need to think about, and I can, you know, let the cat out of the bag. But, you know, people do ask if we don't fly, well, why? Well, there's a 20-mile-an-hour wind. Well, which direction? Is it headwind, tailwind? I mean, ask any pilot. You know, all of his flights, by the way, have been here at Paulson. The guy hasn't, in 15 years, if you're a pilot, he has not amassed 2 hours of flight time. I mean, he's not really been given his license to fly yet. I mean, so he's still kind of figuring it out, as we all are. But you take all those things into account, and, you know, it never is more poignant than when I had, oh God, and I've stopped doing this, and I've realized I'm slow on the draw. But so often we were talking as you saw him fly to the food that I'm offering. Well, first off, he's coming not necessarily because of this bromance that we have for one another. Not that it's not real, but but I'm doing it because I've got his, you know, Mac Daddy meal. You know, it's supersized meal. He's eager to eat that. But anyway, in the course of it, and this has happened multiple times, where he affectionately, and I guess I can say this, I've called it the toilet bowl flight, if it offends anybody. But it's a toilet bowl flight that's around the stadium, and we spoke of that, where he's going over the student section, and people just love that. Well, when I'm walking on the concourse here, I've had more than one person step up and stop me and say, you know, that was the most beautiful flight, Steve, where it circled like 4 times, and I could tell how cool it is because you kept turning around, and he kept following you. And it's like, well, you know, do I want to pull back the curtain and go, that's not really what's happening. I was mumbling under my breath saying, could you please come down and alight on my fist so that we could get off the stage. But anyway, so and I'd go into long dissertations, and now I say thank you. You know, I love the great flight. Well, thank you, but it was never planned that. We really like the A to B flight. Yeah.
A year ago. 7 home games. No flights. That was part of the Sun Belt Conference's protocols. Anything that was outside what was normal or what could be done on the field was nixed.
Absolutely.
So as you're trying to get ready for this year, are you making up for lost time, or What has that been like trying to get ready for this season since you didn't get a chance to do it live a year ago?
Sure. And correct me if I'm wrong, September 4th, right?
Yes.
It's the first game.
19 days.
Ask me then.
Okay. Pop in. First quarter. We'll get you.
Yeah. We may have – this may be our last interview, actually, ever. No, depending on how it goes on the 4th. No, I do have a response to that, which is we talked earlier about my involvement with Birds of Prey long before the Wildlife Center, hunting with them and all that, 35 years. And so you learn some things along the way. And in these predatory animals, that fight or flight, he's got it down. I mean, he knows what it is. And you don't, Danny, in a more serious vein, they don't forget that stuff at all because their very livelihood, evolutionary. I'm talking about birds of prey, 57 million years, 50 to 70% of young birds of prey, eagles and like, they die for the first birthday. So if they learn that I've got McDonald's Happy Meal at the 10-yard lines, to your question, I don't think he's forgetting it. So it's not that. It's really what are the variables that are different, and our partner in crime, our part, yeah, it is kind of intimidating. It's like, oh, take a look here. Yeah. Anyway, our partner in crime, Dan Adams, is the one that we talked about. He's the one that he does a great job. But when he was starting out here, it's like, Dan, tell me what the field's like. Those are the things that I'm interested in this upcoming. What's on the field? What's going to change? You've already said there's going to be a lot of marketing pieces that have been, which is great. But I need to see it through the eyes of an eagle, and anything in the air is huge. It's a fight or flight. It's in the end, and I think both of you lamented and got to watch him fly. This is still kind of ostensibly a wild animal. Make no mistake. So we don't ever take it for granted, and we just pray a lot on the 10-yard line. But anyway. Oh, Danny, you want to do something? I wanted to say this earlier, and I know this portion. Can you feel right up here? If you just grab that big bump right there?
Okay.
Yeah, you know what that is, right?
I have no idea.
That's the rat he just ate.
Oh,
I swear to God.
Steve, I appreciate you telling me.
Just thought I'd mix that in.
I appreciate
that.
I
was just waiting for the opportune time. But anyway, that was this McDonald's Happy Meal. Yeah,
that's awfully nice of you.
Well, it's just it's a first. We like to. I don't know how well that plays over the air, but it's real.
Perfect.
Yeah.
A big part of everybody sees you walking around on game day, and I know that is really near and dear to your heart to not just be Freedom's Flight and then go home.
Sure.
Being able to get Freedom out there with the people around Paulson Stadium without being able to be around so many people, whether it be here at football, you bring them out to a baseball game, bring them out to different events, not just athletics, but across campus as well. And I know that's something that is really important to you to get the education piece out there about the Wildlife Center.
Well, and it even goes beyond education, quite frankly, and so we can flip a switch here and not get serious. I don't want to be Debbie Downer, but that's the most important thing to me. It's the privilege, and I've said this so often in various interviews and things like that. I am ever mindful that I'm next to something that means so much. So I'm just kind of the caretaker, the guardian. This is I'm the guard at the tomb of the unknown soldier. He is it. I'm a walking, talking tree, but. And this is heresy to some people, but we'll let it go out there. As much as I love wildlife and animals and painting and all the painting wildlife and stuff like that, I love people more. So just don't let that get out in the airways. But anyway, it's all about people, and so to be able to be with people and share something. And so let me give you a couple anecdotal, if you may, little sidebars that mean the world to me. That really kind of I get choked up after a game, and it was here at Paulson. It was a nighttime game. It was late, and okay, I'm sure we won. I don't remember the exact game, but of course we won. So I didn't need to throw that in. But
we win?
We won.
I
think we won big. It's all coming back to me. But anyway, so aside from winning big, it is simply this: so after 4 hours and freedom and walking around and at the very end, I try to do it as long as these old bones will wear it, and so we're doing that, and we have these great traditions, and the band plays, and everybody's kind of gone, and it's late, and it's cold, and I'm kind of walking off, and there'll be somebody who says, one more photograph. Well, anyway, on this particular occasion, I had this woman who was nearly my age. She was as old as dirt. She was an old lady. But anyway, no, she wasn't that old. But she comes up, and she's coming at me at a pretty good clip. I'm really kind of jettisoning out of the stadium, and I could tell she's of Latino. She's crying. That's never happened to me before. It's like, what did I do? And she's clearly coming my way. I'm thinking she's going to jack me up. I have no idea why she's coming at me so quickly. And there was a woman that was right beside her, much, much younger. And she kind of rushes in on me in freedom, much like this hooded. And she, this word's tough, she kisses him on the wing. She just runs right up to him and kisses him on the shoulder. And then she's speaking Spanish. And I'm like, what just happened? And this lady says she's speaking, and she was from, I don't know if it was Honduras or God knows wherever, but she is just so moved. She's applying to be a U.S. citizen. Her dream is to come to the United States.
Wow.
And I just kind of walked away and went, oh, that's cool. Then I had to just kind of swallow. It was like, wow. I mean, just how incredible is that to have? So it's not, being in Luke Bryant's bus that remembers that was a good time. But it's things like that. And then the other one that is a sidebar story, and again, you guys can shut me off at any time but one thing segues to another one. We played Auburn University. And Auburn does a great job, and it was neat to many years ago, 25 years ago, to be able to invite over and talk to the vet school and take them out hunting with my birds of prey. And this was a school of veterinary medicine for which my niece just recently graduated. I will tell you this, that you're at a vet school lecturing, and you're going to take them hunting the following morning, and they take me to Tuskegee National Forest, and my bird kills like 5 squirrels. And it's a felony offense to hunt in a national park. Anyway, it's like, great job. I didn't realize that till afterwards. But anyway, back to the most recent playing of Auburn. The second story with Auburn is that we're playing that game, and I do what I do, regardless, win, lose, or draw. And this is bigger. I won't say bigger than Georgia Southern football, but it's a national symbol. So you share that, and there's some really neat moments that happen. Well, in this case, I was in the end zone. And I was walking about and at halftime, and my niece, who's was finishing up vet school, she pops me on the phone. I look at it. She said, Uncle Steve, you're on national television. It's like, cool, but they're calling it the Auburn Eagle. And that was a proud moment. It's like, no, it wasn't there. So then at that game, and Danny, you guys probably remember, there was they introduced at halftime, and he was an NFL player who just retired, but this massive mountain of a man. And so I'm up on the stage. I remember I'm up walking around, and he comes up, and he's like, man, can I get a photograph? And this guy's every bit of 6'5", and I'm trying to barely reach my arm up with freedom and take a photograph of the guy. And he starts walking away, and he said, man, I love our whatever the name of the eagle was. And I pointed down, and I said, no, this is freedom. This is Georgia Southern's eagle. The look on his face, he was like, oh my God. Like he was creating heresy. But anyway.
Something had happened before that game. They had flown a backup eagle that game. It was a golden eagle. It wasn't the normal eagle.
Oh, really?
Because I think that eagle had suffered some kind of heart condition. So they had to fly the backup. It was a golden eagle, almost like one you would see related to the Southern Miss logo.
I'll be darned.
And that was something that we thought was really unique. But when 85,000 people are in there and seeing it from that scale, okay.
Wow. Yeah, because it traditionally is not a, it's a bald eagle as ours is. It's their mascot is a golden eagle, a war eagle. So anyway, fun stuff though, and I've been blessed well beyond my deserving to a million little anecdotal stories and moments and contacts and like I said, I'm privileged for sure to do what I do.
You've been able to do a lot of really cool things, be at a lot of really cool places, carrying freedom with you. What's some of the best places and some of your favorite memories of being able to step back and say, that was pretty cool to be able to go to that or be there?
Florida. Are you kidding me? Jeez, that was. Matter of fact, what's fun is it's going south on them so fast, and it may not have been the best Gator team. Our administrative assistant is a big Florida Gator fan, so I hope she's listening. But anyway, if she's not, I'll rub it in again. But it was interesting. We were pummeling them, and they were kind of – but I actually got kicked out of the stands. So I was pretty proud. I was kind of a renegade.
You got kicked out of the stands in Florida?
I did.
I don't know this. I don't know that I knew that.
No, that's been so many years ago. But I think they just didn't like – and I wasn't meaning to be flaunting. I mean, it was just that's what I was doing. And they had people said, security, they had to come. It's, I've never had a speeding ticket, but I got told to get and I'm seriously, I have not. But I literally got escorted and said, you must stay in this little area. So it's, yes, sir. So I tried and true. But that certainly would be a standout, and then when we played Alabama, and again they got hit by a buzzsaw, and they didn't know what hit them, and that certainly, and the people were wonderful. They were really outstanding folks. So, and I've had some others that were not so nice about it, But anyway,
you talked about whenever freedom flies, you're kind of praying a little bit. The first flight that he had in front of however many people here at Paulson Stadium,
2007.
How nervous were you?
Oh, yeah, things I can't talk about. No, I tell you this, I can answer it. There were nervous times. We did all the, the heavy lifting, all the work. You do that, and we've done it every year since. But if I'm not still slightly nervous or pensive about it or excited, it's time to move on. It is. But nowadays it's like I've done it a long time. He's done it, and what the heck? I mean, he's gone out and tailgated and drank beer with the team or whatever. That and people do remind me of that as if I've ever forgotten the one time they did fly out. So I'm appreciative for all those in the listening land who come up and say, "You remember Steve when he flew out and you had to get him in the soccer field?"
Like,
yeah.
Yeah, we remember that.
I had forgotten it for a second.
No, I had forgotten it, but God, thank you for that one. I can relive that all over again. But anyway, but it was kind of like a get out of jail card free, because it's not enough for you to say it's too windy, or whatever, this, that, or the other. But once we have that and it becomes part of the cultural memory, it's like, oh my God, now how many times have we flown? A gazillion. But we're always doing that. But no, the first couple times, yes, we were nervous and we did all that, and the wind, and I still, but now it's more excitement. It's like, man, let's do it. And you'll see sometimes I literally can't hide my relief, because I think I've wiped my brow in front of the television going, wow, he took the long route, but he's here. So
I'll give you a quick sidebar about a day that he didn't fly, because when I was with the Citadel, this was my first year in November of 2011. I remember being in the visiting radio booth and hearing, man, they're going to fly the Eagle before the game. I said, what? Yeah, he's going to fly around this team, because unbeknownst to me, I didn't realize this happened.
Yeah.
Heard over the PA, Freedom will not be flying today because of the wind. And
yes.
that's coming up on 10 years ago already.
Yeah, that's a Debbie Downer. Yeah, for a lot of people.
And the funny thing about it, at the end of the game, the Citadel had a chance to win the game on a field goal. Wind pushed it off, so maybe it's good that Freedom.
There you go. Yeah. So you become a bit of a weatherman. We're constantly, we go up there with the wind gauge. We really do. So and we try not to fly, over 10 miles an hour, and even then it's based on the direction and gusts of 15. I mean, you just got to take that into account. It took us this long to get them. It took us 3 years to train them. We get requests to fly all over the country, and every time I've taken it to whomever the president was at the time, do you want to fly at a racetrack down in Daytona? Well, Steve, tell me about it. Well, he could fly off and we'd never see him again. The answer is pretty quickly, nope. So we really just kind of, I think he's pretty well wed to Paulson Stadium.
We talked about him a little bit earlier, but Scott, the other half of your team during Freedom's flight, he's at the top of the press box releasing Freedom. You guys have been together for a long time. He's the curator over at the Wildlife Center. What does that relationship have to be between you, Scott, and Freedom, all getting on the same page for a Freedom's flight?
Well, good point. And Scott has been with me even further than that when he was a student here at Georgia Southern. So, and taking care of some of the few animals that we had as we were prepping pre-1997. So, it is in sync, because I rely on him a great deal, because he's seeing what I'm not seeing. And as we said before, like the two of you, one up and one down, Danny on the field with me, is we're looking at the behavior, and he's, we get here early enough. But Scott is able to read the behavior. He's holding them, since I got 4 hours of holding them, so I let him hold them here when we're where we are right now. It's like my arm's pretty wimped out already. But anyway, but he'll start describing, and I'll be on the radio chatting at him saying, what's his behavior? Is we call it rowing, but is his wings, will he pump a little bit as if he's excited? These are these little pieces of behavior that you want to see. And when we don't see him, he and I kind of go stealth. It's like, you're not seeing it? I'm not seeing it either. You think he's going to fly? I don't know if he's going to fly, Steve. Whatever. So we've had some angst. The difference is, and all he has to do is get the hood off. I'm the one who's, granted, the camera and the people's eyes and attention are on him. But the one thing's certain, he's going to fly. So he's done his job when he leaves. Me, on the other hand, I'm doing pirouettes, praying to the God of whomever that he'll land where he's supposed to land. So I think at that point he becomes part of the audience.
You talk about the bromance between you and Freedom, and a lot of people don't realize that it's not just show up at Paulson and then go back to the Wildlife Center. Yes, he has a home there, but he also goes home with you.
Well, he does, and that really has a couple different storylines to it. Initially, again, the fact that we waited, we've already covered this, that we got the bird, we waited all this time. Well, you make a mistake with a bird, and this is speaking of many years of hunting with them and training them, they remember it. I mean, everything is put to memory. So my job, and to make this more succinct, is to make sure that he's not traumatized. And it's death by 1,000 paper cuts. That emotional, I mean, these are, I'm not going to knock, I'll make sure he's not listening. They're not the smartest. No, they're not equivalent to parrots, citizens, or the corvids, which are your ravens and things like that. So, but they're very kind of responsive to stimuli and stuff like that. And so I thought, okay, now we've got the eagle. Now I've got to start training it. I did not want to train it here at the Wildlife Center, where there was all of this. I live out in the country. I want it to be just total isolation so I could bring this young bird that has never seen people and control every bit as we introduced it. So for 3 years, unbeknownst to the public, I was upstairs, I was tidbitting, I was feeding, I was shaping, I was doing all this, every game, every event. And then I got to where I was out in front of it. So we use food as a operant condition, the reward and getting lengthily there. But anyway, so that's how we did all of that. Well, once he was trained and realized now that first flight that you've already spoken to, it's like, oh, now I need to safeguard that. Well, we've got some great students here at Georgia Southern now, I think 20,000 as we start the fall. But college students being what college students are, I'm not so sure I wanted him on display, because sometimes they like to visit the Wildlife Center after hours, and that wouldn't be a good thing. So if you read yeah, exactly. So I think once we had him trained, it was then how do we safeguard that? And bear in mind, in both in the training stages and also presently, all of this had to be approved by U.S. Fish and Wildlife. There is literally nothing I do that doesn't have their blessing, because I'm just an employee. The bird is permitted to the university, but it's not owned by the university. It's actually owned by, technically, we the people of the United States, and the federal government gets to determine what they do. And there's been high-profile cases where they've confiscated birds. So I just need to get to retirement, and I'm good. I'm just kidding. Bad joke. I'll pull that off the table.
We've talked so much about being at athletics, the Wildlife Center. When you kind of, not necessarily look back, but when you look at everything that you've been able to be a part of here at Georgia Southern, what is it that you're most proud of?
Wow. And I do a pretty good job of talking, but you kind of stopped me in my tracks there. You covered the first flight. That certainly is the case, and everything associated with freedom. But that was almost a relief, because the people who made the Wildlife Center, the people and the corporations, and this is giving great credit where credit due. The university blindly took faith in me, which is literally an act of mercy. But anyway, and then I had a whole host of people who contributed a great deal of money. So, but the driver to it was the eagle. So even though we built the center, I didn't feel like I had met my commitment, to be really honest. So freedom filled that piece in so fundamentally. But we did two years with the NBA Atlanta Hawks. I mean, that was like way cool. I mean, could you imagine you're flying? And that happened so oddly enough. We did a lot of events in Atlanta, and it was the Turner family bought the Thrashers and the Hawks, and I was doing a Captain Planet of all things. Yes, Captain Planet. I did Captain Planet. Well, this has been so many years ago, but Ted Turner's oldest daughter ran that foundation, I guess. But anyway, so we were doing some kind of event, and I had read at Snooki's, the old restaurant here in Statesboro, and we can all genuflect when we mention Snooki's, but we. I remember reading the paper, so I was at her, and I said, have you ever thought about flying a Hawk at the Hawks game? And she said, can you do it? And this was a black tie event. I said, I don't know, I think so. Anyway, getting to that point, so we got a contract.
Black tie on him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we turn around and we get the contract, and so from that we got to meet. And my older two were quite young at the time, in middle school and so forth, and they would always ask, who did you meet? What celebrity? And so it was kind of cool to meet Kobe Bryant, God rest his soul, and Shaquille O'Neal and all that. But I remember, and I've told this story enough, but this is one of the highlights when you talk about just humorous, when you'd come home and the next morning, we got home at like 2 a.m, but my kids would ask, who did you meet? Did you meet a celebrity? I said, no, I nobody that I recognize. I said, but they did introduce me for some reason I don't know to one of the ushers, and it was a pregnant pause, and they looked at me. They said, Dad, let me show you. Was it this person? Yeah. He said, that is Usher. I said, well, who is Usher? I thought it was an Usher. I said they were really fussing. Anyway, so there's a lot of really special moments. Danny, you don't have to laugh at me that hard.
Yes, I do.
Okay, well, I'm telling of my age, but anyway,
who is Usher?
I had not a clue. Well, he was just starting off. Give me a break. He wasn't the super star that he is today.
Okay.
But anyway, no, there's just been a lot of. But I'll tell you, it's. I really am doing a poor job of answering because there's these little moments all the time. There are people who come by the Wildlife Center who just are. How about the people who've quite elderly, even older than I, who have lost loved ones in the military, and they're seeing him and they're asking to get photographs. I mean, I can't tell you how many times that happens. So it's just all been, well exceeded any of my expectations, and. I think no one expected it from me, and I don't think I did a whole lot. I was just dumb enough to not know what could happen, including a freedom's flight. You just say, hey, let's try it, and everybody forgive me if it goes awry. That's just life. Let's all be kind.
You call it coincidence, you can call it whatever you want to, but it popped up on my Facebook memories earlier on today that today, 12 years ago, my cousin graduated from Georgia Southern. Fran Marshall, now up in the Augusta area. And correct me if I'm wrong, 2009, that would have been the first graduating class that had freedom fly over them.
Yes. Wow. Because we flew 2007, but I didn't think he was up for a commencement flight because the field was crowded. And I know you were going to take the story elsewhere, but I remember Groovy said, no, you will fly, Dr. Groovy. And I think I said, yes, sir. I think that was my exact words, yes, sir. And so you're right. Wow. When to put all that together.
It was the first time I was ever in this stadium. I think I was a sophomore in high. I don't know. Years run together. But the first time I was in this stadium and the first Freedom's flight over the graduates, Fran was a part of.
Wow. Yeah.
And it says 12 years ago today.
That is, well, the serendipity and synchronicity of life. And that is, I think Southern Living magazine did an article like that. And it was like, that's me. I didn't know what the words meant at the time. but on the other hand, I couldn't disagree with it. And so here we are having a moment. Those are the things that are so enriching, that you have no idea where they're going to show themselves. And it's just simply because we're next to something that means a lot to. I'm just a temporary custodian, but it's a pretty good ride. Pretty good ride.
Steve, appreciate you taking some time tonight to kind of sit down, and I know you're passionate about sharing the story, sharing freedom with everybody, not only in Eagle Nation, but around the country, and being able to do what you do.
I consider it an incredible privilege, and I'm thankful to everybody out there who's made my life possible. It's all about other people, and I'm just the beneficiary.
Steve, appreciate the time.
Hey, thank you so much. It's been a lot of fun.
Thank you, man.
Take care. See you.
Once again, that is Steve Hein, the Executive Director of the Wildlife Center, a really, really interesting person, one of the best people that you will talk to around Georgia Southern.
He is a fascinating conversation. A lot of times he expects people to ask about freedom, but it's what else he's done outside of that. 35 years involved with birds of prey, generating the exposure, getting the Wildlife Center off the ground, to use an awful pun.
That's the only kind we have.
But it seems that he's one of those people, every time you talk to him, you learn something you didn't before. I didn't know about the hawk stuff.
I didn't either.
Did not know about that.
I didn't know about the hawk stuff. There was a lot of I didn't know he got kicked out of Ben Hill Griffin.
Yeah, I would have, because I looked at you on that because I wasn't here yet.
No.
And I thought that you would have known something about that.
that was my first year traveling, so my head was still spinning. But
Was that before or after Terry kicked the power off? I guess it would have been after.
My guess would be after, because that was first quarter.
Yeah.
I do remember that. That much I do remember.
That was great stuff. That was really good.
Still a lot to get to with this week's edition of Inside Eagle Nation. Really appreciate Steve Hein coming by and talking to us for about 30, 45 minutes. I know he had some dinner he had to get to. But that he was pretty excited about. Freedom already had his dinner. You felt his dinner. But Steve had to get his.
Yeah, I thought it was just going to be, okay, that's his heartbeat. No, that's the rat. That's the rat he ate. All right, Steve. I've known Steve for a little more than 6 years. It's all good. It's fine.
Taking a look at this past week in Georgia Southern. There that is. But had a pretty cool new contest come out this past week. Rolling Monkey going to be the presenting sponsor of the Artist Series. And so you or a friend or a family member can create Georgia Southern inspired pieces of art for football game days. And it can be any kind of art. You can be a singer, you can be a painter, a graphic designer, a pottery maker. I know that's probably not what you call that. What do you call a pottery maker? Sculptor? There it is. Sculptor. We're going to go with that. And I know there's already been a couple submissions that have been put in for the Rolling Monkey Artist Series. And it's some cool stuff, whether it be singers, rappers, a lot of different stuff that has been put in.
Art's all around us.
Correct. And so applications will officially open coming up in the next couple of days, August the 20th. And artists will be selected next week and will be contacted next week. So you can submit photos, and then they will be featured on the Georgia Southern football social media throughout the football season.
This is an example of how much different our presentation is going to look this season. And we've had Terry on a few weeks ago talking about some of the new sponsors we already have as part of Georgia Southern Sports Properties. And now with Learfield, since the rebranding, we're back to being Learfield. We know that there are going to be several new concessions offerings at Paulson Stadium this year. And you probably put together that since we're on Monday nights, there's going to be some programming changes, which we'll announce very soon regarding some of the other things that you'll hear once we get towards the beginning of the 2021 football season. But this is something that I know this is tying a couple things together, and it might sound a little bit corny, but this is very creative. You automatically associate artistry and artists with being creative. Yeah. And this is something that you wouldn't have ordinarily thought of.
So get your submissions in. What would, and this isn't going to be the you pick, but it's my pick. What would be, if you had to submit some kind of art, what would it be?
Have a couple of Daryl Lynn's paintings in the house.
Yeah, but that's not yours. I think that's called plagiarism.
No, the paintings that she's done.
Right. But they're not yours. They're hers.
You mean art?
That's her submission.
Well, it was gifted to me.
But she still did it.
Are impressions, is that a form of art? Could
the way you do it,
could we loosely say that that's a form of art? Because if so, we're good.
The way you do it, yeah, I'll give you that one.
I'm not much of a painter or a drawer or sculptor or anything like that, but
that's why I'm so fascinated by this, because my mom is extremely artistic. She can make anything she wants to. That gene was not passed to me.
Yeah,
it's really not. My handwriting's terrible. My art, goodness gracious, it's terrible.
When you have to really focus on your handwriting to make sure it's neat, that's how you know that your handwriting is not neat.
You know it's bad whenever you draw a circle and you actually do a good one. You're like, huh, look at that.
Yeah. Then you do the next one and it looks like a peanut.
Bingo, you got it.
I'd throw some impressions out there.
Okay.
Not painting impressions.
You got to do Barry, Joe.
But I feel like I'd have to make sure that the people I'm impersonating would be people that would be listening would know.
At some point, we should do it to where you do the impression, and then we have a clip of the person you're impersonating.
Yeah.
I knew that wasn't the right word.
hit pause, rewind,
yeah,
try it again.
Yeah. 3, 2, 1. The person you're impersonating, read the same line.
Yeah.
See how spot on it is.
One of these days.
We keep saying we're going to do that, and we haven't yet.
We'll go back to Rolling Monkey and see if they want to do that.
Other news in Georgia Southern athletics this week, you had 4 Eagles named to the 2022 Reese's Senior Bowl watch list. You had C.J. Wright, J.D. King, Randy Wade Jr., and Darrell Baker Jr. added to the list. And again, the Senior Bowl going to be at the end of the season. It's a huge, huge scouting event for the NFL. You got a couple of teams from the NFL have their coaches go down and are the coaches for the week down at Mobile and
now you got it at Hancock Whitney Stadium, no longer at Ladd-Peebles. They had the final one at Ladd-Peebles, even with Hancock Whitney constructed, but there was something about that deal that didn't get finalized. But you think about the last one that took place, Kendall Vildor and Tyler Bass were both part of it. Bass hit the field goal on the final play of the game. Vildor had an interception, and lo and behold, Bass is one of the premier kickers in the AFC, and Vildor has a very realistic chance to be the other starting corner for Chicago this year.
An interesting news note that came out last week. Georgia Southern women's tennis is going to be offering weekly clinics this fall. So Sean McCaffrey and the team going to be offering, starting on August the 31st, every Tuesday, you have youth and adult clinics. So you and I could learn how to play tennis.
We'll go with the youth clinic.
Yeah,
we'll be on the youth side.
That's more our
thing.
speed.
Yeah. I picture Battle of the Eagle Stars last year where the coach are trying to hit it in these small squares to get points. Can we make a bigger court or just a bigger ball just to make it that much easier?
But it's $20 per session or $175 for all 11 dates. You can go to gseagles.com to get Coach McCaffrey's contact info and just reach out to him, and he will get you hooked up with the Georgia Southern Women's Tennis weekly clinics.
I like it.
Yeah. Women's soccer got things started on their season in exhibition style as they blanked UNC Asheville in a 3-0 match back on Saturday. And it's cool to see, and was talking with Coach Adams about it a little bit earlier. The 3 goals were scored by a freshman and 2 transfers. So we talked about how a lot of bright things along the horizon for Georgia Southern women's soccer. They will actually start their season coming up this week on the 19th, on Thursday. They will be at the College of Charleston, 6 p.m. the kickoff. Men's soccer will be at home for an exhibition matchup against North Georgia, the former home for Chris Adams.
Okay, going to CFC, they're going to get to go over one of your favorite southern landmarks, the Ravenel Bridge. Ravenel Bridge.
They'll be right on the backside of Patriots Point.
Better find some good seafood. If you don't, it's your fault.
Yes. You're always there's a diner we always go to.
Early Bird.
Sure.
In Charleston. Delicious.
I can never remember the name of it, which I know shocks no one. But women's soccer blanked UNC Asheville 3-0 in the exhibition this past Saturday. And a news note that came out earlier on today, the Sun Belt Conference named Mason McWhorter the male Sun Belt Athlete of the Year. And very well deserved. Just the second time a Georgia Southern student athlete has been honored that way. Stephen Fisk back in 2019 did it for men's golf rather. But Mason McWhorter, the Sun Belt Athlete of the Year on the male side.
The honors just keep piling up, and we've already covered Sun Belt Baseball Player of the Year, All-American with Nick Jones, Academic All-American, now Sun Belt Male Athlete of the Year. And I thought about this a little bit earlier in the afternoon, just over the last couple of years, over the sports that we cover with football, baseball, and our basketball teams. The landmark achievements that have been made by some individuals and where they're going to stand in the record books.
Yeah.
Football, Shai Wertz, Tukey Brown, men's basketball, Mason with baseball. He's in that category.
No doubt.
He is in that category.
He's going to be somebody that 20 years from now, people are going to look back and say, hey, you remember what Mason McWhorter did back in 2019, did in 2021? It's going to be that type of conversation of 10, 15, 20 years down the road.
It was a year and a half ago when the season got shut down because of COVID. He had 23 RBIs at that point. He was leading the conference. I want to say he was 10th in the country with that total, thinking, okay, that's a great start, but he didn't get to finish it. So who knows what would have happened the rest of 2020. He opted to come back. Stephen Curry opted to come back. Tyler Owens opted to come back. Matt Anderson opted to come back. And watching him flirt with 400 for so long, watching him hit 18 homers, including 2 of those in the tournament, including in the first inning of Championship Sunday. And the final plate appearance of his career, he drives in Stephen Curry with a sac fly in the 9th inning. I know it didn't result in a victory, but in a losing effort, that's still one of the coolest moments that I can recall on a baseball field, watching him drive him in.
Yeah, you talk about him flirting with 400 deep into the season. I remember when we were at Oklahoma, and it was the matchup of him and Hardman. Those two were battling to see who was going to be the national hits leader. And I remember on Thursday at practice, he and I were talking, and somehow Hardman came up in conversation, and he's like, when you step back and think that you're battling somebody from Oklahoma for the national hits leader, he goes, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And that's just the kind of and we talk about it all the time, and people are probably tired of hearing us talk about it, but you'll get over it. As much as he meant to this program in the stats on the field, he is that much of a better person off the field, because he's in, not necessarily here at Georgia Southern, but you see time and time again where somebody that means a lot to a team on the field isn't necessarily the person that you're going to want to hang out with afterwards. That couldn't be farther from the truth with Mason. He is a genuine individual. We talk about Jimmy and Sandette all the time and the kind of person that they raised, and Jimmy and Sandette should be the MVPs of the Sun Belt Conference. They should do Parents of the Year.
That's one thing that does make you a little sad, is that you don't get to see them as much anymore because Mason's eligibility is done. But if they do happen to want to come back for a game or two here and there, they should know that they're always going to be welcome.
Yeah, in the booth.
If that's up to them.
Moving on to Georgia Southern football, as this past weekend, it was the first scrimmage for Georgia Southern football in the preseason camp, and being able to take it in. You were here on Saturday. I was off gallivanting somewhere else. But he had a lot of scores. You didn't necessarily have the stats put out because of different ways of spotting the ball during the scrimmage, but
yeah, there were some parts of the scripted 90 plays that the ball was going to go here. Sometimes there would have been sacks that were taken away. There would have been tackles for loss. There would have been turnovers, different places the ball would have been put, what have you. But we do know that there were 8 scoring plays.
So Justin Tomlin had 3 touchdown passes, a 20-yard hookup with Caleb Hood, 15-yarder to Amari Jones, and a 12-yarder to Bo Johnson later on. And then you had the rest were rushing touchdowns. J.D. King from 2 yards out. Jordan Pearson, from 5 yards out. Caleb Hood had a 66-yard scamper. Jalen White with 12 yards and Cam Ransom with a 5-yard score. Tyler Bride also had an interception on the defensive side. And Justin Birdsong had a fumble recovery. And so your overall thoughts from what the first time seeing, not necessarily seeing full pads, but seeing full go for the first time?
There's always going to be things that you like. There are going to be things that you don't like. Typically at this point of the year, defense is going to be ahead of offense. That's just how it is. There's no real right or wrong. That's just how it is when you're getting ready for a football season. But that being said, when we get to September the 4th, I think the people that haven't seen this team yet, and when they do get to see it up close, this is going to be the fastest team that Eagle Nation has seen since, I would say, 2015. When you infuse an Amari Jones, when you see the strides that Caleb Hood has made, when you get a chance to see what Cam Ransom can do at quarterback, you see a sleeker-looking J.D. King. You see how Jalen White combines power and speed. You see that defense, which has already been amongst the best in this league the last 3 seasons since Scott Sloan came back to Statesboro. Team speed-wise, this is the fastest since, I think, that 2015 group.
They'll go through a full week of practice. They were off today because of getting back to a normal schedule, normally taking Mondays off, but getting back to a more normal schedule. They will have their second scrimmage coming up this Saturday at Paulson Stadium, 9:30, the first snap. I don't want to say kickoff because there's not usually a whole lot of special teams that take place, but first snap at 9:30.
And from what we've seen, this is our 7th year together now, when we come to scrimmages, we know that the first few periods, they run through special teams, hey, kickoff, hey, field goal, just to get the juices flowing, maybe some pads pop, but nothing too serious because you're going to go through roughly 90 to 100 plays. They began Saturday with red zone. And the first snap, you said that 20-down touchdown to Caleb Hood, that was the first play of the game.
Well, how about that? Kick it off with a bang.
Hood went up the seam, over the shoulder grab, got a foot in bounds the back of the end zone. I'm thinking, that's first play game. Okay. All right, what else? Second snap, Amari Jones was in a quarterback. And I know we're going to get to our preview of quarterbacks. Well, we did quarterbacks. We'll get to running backs, wide receivers as part of our position preview. We mentioned before about Amari Jones being that guy that could be the slot back, be the running back, and maybe step in to help out a quarterback if he would start, okay, whatever. This is more than just a wild eagle. This is someone that played the position in high school in Frisco, Texas, was really good up until a gruesome leg injury cost him a large portion of his junior and senior years. He's extremely capable. And I made the comment to Frank Solkowski during interviews on Saturday that, well, okay, we saw him on multiple special teams. We saw him quarterback, running back, wide receiver, slot back. He's the Swiss Amari knife. And I think that once we get to that first game, how true that's going to be, because I believe we're going to see him in every way, shape, and form involved.
He's going to be somebody that, and we talked about him a little bit earlier on in the summer when I think Phil Steele had him as a 4th-team All-Sun Belt, and he hadn't taken a snap in the Sun Belt.
Yeah.
And we talked about the impact that he could have as a running back, but now you're going to see, again, get him the ball and see what he can do.
And special teams-wise, he was getting some love in the return game. If you don't want to kick it to Caleb Hood, okay, you got to deal with Amari Jones on the other side. And that's somebody that was amongst the leaders in the American in all-purpose yards over his 3 years at Tulane. Now, he's going to get 2 years at Georgia Southern should he exercise those. Last year, slid down the depth chart a little bit. He dealt with that same injury that cost him some time during the tail end of his high school days. When healthy, and we've seen that the first couple of weeks of camp, when healthy, not only can he play a lot of positions, he can be really good at a lot of positions. And that gives you that dimension in this offense that Doug Roos is thinking, okay, I know how I'm going to eventually get this ball point A to point B. He lets me be able to do this even faster than I thought I could.
There's a lot of different weapons, and we touched on it a little bit last week with the quarterbacks preview as we kind of move into the running backs, wide receiver preview of what this team is going to look like. But the depth, I think, is what stands out, especially on the offensive side. Of you have so many different guys that could play an impact, and it's not a fall off once you get past the first 2 or 3. You look at the running back core, and we've talked about J.D. King looks sleeker. He's obviously, you know what he can do, but you look at guys like Logan Wright. He has, if it was possible to bulk up, he is a bowling ball now.
He's a big boy.
Gerald Green. Amari Jones, Jalen White, who we saw a lot last year, A.J. Brown, Taron Dixon, Jordan Pearson had a touchdown in that scrimmage on Saturday. So many different guys just at the running back spot that you could give the ball to.
All right, now with J.D., we know he's still working his way back from the ACL. He didn't play a whole lot during the scrimmage. Now, you see he had a touchdown run, so you assume that things went pretty well. He was only in for a couple of snaps. They're being extremely careful with that knee. By the time we get to September the 4th, he'll continue to get closer and closer to full game mode, and then you would think that a timeshare would exist with Logan Wright as the dive back, but I'm sure there are some instances where you could see both of them on the field at the same time. Now, for the first couple of weeks of camp, what we were largely seeing was that 11 personnel, the one back, one tight, 3 wides. There was a lot more formational flexibility from Coach Roos. We saw a lot of double tight, specifically in red zone, because it gets closer. You want the heavier bodies in there. Remember, towards the tail end of last year, we saw the power eye with Randy Wade and C.J. Wright when you need a 4th and 1. When Logan Wright is the deepest guy and you got those 2 monsters ahead of him, give me the ball. I'm going to get what I need. Jalen White looked the best of everybody that touched the football, and I'm saying that even though Caleb Hood had a 66-yard touchdown run and a touchdown catch. Amari Jones playing as many as 6 different positions. But as far as getting the ball consistently 4 or 5 yards, leaning forward, and taking multiple guys to bring you down, Jalen White looked the best. Now, that doesn't mean he's going to get the start against Gardner-Webb. And if you think back to a year ago in the spring game, or not the spring game, but the first scrimmage, it was Jalen White that caught everybody's attention with that nearly 70-yard touchdown run that happened right in front of us. Now, ultimately, he didn't get worked into the offense until Army, Georgia State, towards the very end of the season. And those experiences were against 3s and 4s last year. So you wonder, okay, he looked great, but how was it going to look when push came to shove? Saturday, he was doing it against 1s and 2s. You've seen pictures of him helping out with some of the community service activities. He looks yoked. He looks ready to make more of an impact than just getting a couple of carries here and there. I'm not saying he's going to take carries from a JD or a Logan or whomever else is in that backfield with how coach is going to use them, but he appears that if he's needed, Jalen White's ready.
As we kind of transition more towards the receiver side, got to hit that what I call kind of a hybrid position. It's not a full running back. It's not a full receiver, but what they call the slot receiver. Caleb Hood, Dexter Carter Jr., and those are two guys that do that slot really well, but they do it very differently. Dexter Carter more of the receiver side of it, Caleb Hood more of the running back side of it, but Caleb is somebody that we've seen, especially the last couple of practices, has really gotten a lot better with the hands and going out receiving-wise.
A year ago was the catch against Louisiana, the one-handed catch for the touchdown, second game of the season. That was an ESPN top play. He has the 65-yard touchdown catch against Louisiana Tech that I think in effect put that game away. I know it was the first play of the second quarter, but after that play, Louisiana Tech was not going to win that game. Yeah. That was Georgia Southern's day. Now he's taking those oh my moments. That's about every play. He has the chance to take every play and make them that instead of a snapshot where this is possible, that's possible. Now it's becoming the norm. And with the Dexter Carter, receiving-wise, we've been accustomed to him being a possession guy. But you think back to 2017, he ran a kickoff back for a touchdown against New Mexico State right here. And then against App State, final home game a year ago in the fourth quarter, breaks off a 78-yard touchdown reception. Where'd that come from? Broken down coverage in the secondary. He split 3 guys, longest touchdown pass here in 13 years. So to know that you've got that kind of weapon, that kind of untapped potential to catch the football, that's just something else that you can use that as an offense already has a lot of weapons.
And he's one of those guys, too, that you just enjoy being around. We've talked about him a couple of times throughout the podcast, but he is somebody that you genuinely enjoy when you get to have a conversation with Dexter Carter.
Best hair. He won the best hair award already, so he's already on the fast track. He's going to be all league this year. You may as well just stamp him for it. He's going to be good because of the hair. No, but he's such a good guy because he's had to deal with so many injuries. He's had to deal with so much. It's his 6th year. He opted to take that 6th year. We found out about that before the Louisiana Tech game last year.
Yeah.
So it wasn't something where he had to weigh his decision after a bowl victory. He knew. And now we're getting a chance to see what he can do. It's a little bit of a shift because he's moved inside. For much of his career, he's been an outside guy. But if you could find a way to get him the football, he's got those sure hands. If you need a first down, odds are good he's going to get it for you, but also that game-breaking ability that he's shown us in the past.
So we move on to wide receivers, and this is one that is kind of a question mark. When you go into a preseason, there's always 1 or 2 positions that you're like, I'm not exactly sure what you're going to get. Wide receivers is probably one of those for Georgia Southern. You know you have talent there, but it's talent that hasn't necessarily had to prove itself in a game. You've got guys like Najee Thompson and Emil Smith, but outside of that, there's not a whole lot of experience in that wide receiver room, but there is a lot of untapped potential and talent.
The hidden part of what this team lost from a year ago, production-wise, from a receiving yardage standpoint, you lost 4 of your top 7 guys.
Yeah.
Malik Murray transfers to East Tennessee State. Darian Anderson transfers to Tusculum. And those are 2 guys that were here for a long time. Sometimes they were able to do a lot. Other times they go away because guess what? When you run the ball 50, 55 times a game, receivers are blockers. We know that wide blockers is a very common phrase here, not so much other places. And that's where a J.J. McAfee means so much. Big body, a Mark Mashad-style body at 6'3", 220. Somebody you feel for from a health standpoint because he lost his senior season at Ashley Ridge in Charleston because of a torn ACL. He ends up going to Trident Tech in Charleston to get his academics in order, then goes on to Georgia Military where he's a walk-on. And by the time he works himself into a place where he can be in the rotation, COVID comes, no season in 2020. So now Georgia Southern takes a look at his tape from years ago thinking, can we get that now with the weight that he's put on? What can we extrapolate from what we have seen? So far, he's automatically a physical force.
Yeah.
DBs anywhere aren't going to be able to match up with him. He's naturally going to be that possession guy. But I also hooked up with Amari Jones on a beautiful touchdown pass earlier on last week before the scrimmage. You've got Darius Lewis, speedster, who had that 16-yard run against Louisiana Tech. He hasn't done a whole lot in terms of catches because he's been playing behind Caleb Hood. But you move him to the outside with a Najee Thompson. Guys that haven't gotten a whole lot of a chance can now get that chance because of the reps they've been getting in spring, in camp, and eventually when the lights come on, they're going to have to do it for real.
And you've got other names in here, Justin Harris, the redshirt freshman from Peach County, and different guys that have, again, the talent. It's just trying to get that opportunity, and Coach Lunsford talks about it all the time. Next man up. It's not necessarily the same way that you normally see it, but it's kind of a next man up. You throw JT Galloway in there, the transfer in from Savannah State.
Yeah.
It's somebody that has experience, but not at this level.
I will go back to Emil Smith, somebody who started 9 games last year, but because he's not involved from a statistical standpoint, you think that he kind of hides. But it was him and Darion Anderson that were your starting receivers for much of 2020. Jeremy Horton is somebody that performed very well during the scrimmage on Saturday. There are guys that are going to be thrust into different opportunities that are going to be pushed onto the field against Gardner-Webb, and that's not because Gardner-Webb is an FCS school. That is because you need to figure out who the 2-3 guys are going to be on this field. We could look at the depth chart now and say, okay, Najee Thompson is back. Caleb Hood is back. Dexter Carter, Darius Lewis. These guys have been here. J.J. McAfee working his way in. Those are guys that are here. But when it's time to do it, can they do it?
Yeah.
When you get to the do-it time, you might find other guys that are capable, not necessarily the practice players, but that can game, that can make a play when it matters. So there may be an instance where the receiver rotation could go 12 deep. If you're going to go 11 personnel and you need 3 receivers every play, you may see 12 different guys get snaps. And that seems wild when you only suit up a certain number of guys every weekend. But until you find a combination that you like, you could see a lot of guys that maybe you know but not that well, and other guys that you're going to need to look at your roster and figure out, okay, did he change numbers? Do I know him? When he starts making catches, you're going to find out pretty quickly, though.
A lot of new faces that you could see here for 2021 Georgia Southern football, especially on the wide receiver side. But seeing what you were able to see this past Saturday, a lot of brightness ahead for this offense.
This is a home run hitting offense. And a lot of times we associate that with breaking off big chunks with the running game. But if you heard Coach Ruse talking spring ball, if you've heard anybody on that side talk about how they want this offense to be in 21, 1, they want to be able to throw it more. 2, Coach Lunsford has said this multiple times. He said this to us in New Orleans at Media Day. He wants this to be an attacking offense.
Yeah.
What that exactly means, it probably has a lot to do with tempo, because numerous times Saturday we saw the quicker tempo. We saw it a couple of times towards the end of last year. And the one stat I'll go back to, the last 2.5 seasons, Georgia Southern's primarily been a team that's run between 62 and 64 plays per game. That's not very many. So the margin for error is pretty small. You go backwards, you need to play catch-up. If you go 3 and out, well, you may not get the ball back until 4 or 5 minutes later. I think you could see this offense run as many as 70 plays per game.
Wow.
Which doesn't seem like a bunch more, 8 to 10 plays more, but if you're in that neighborhood of 6 yards per play, that's 60 extra yards per game. That's probably netting you at least 4 to 5 more points per game, if not a field goal, certainly a touchdown here and there. So when you average that out, a team that scores 27 points per game just in sheer volume may be an offense that can average 32, 34 points per game once we get to 21.
We will dive into more next week, and we, again, will be here on Monday nights throughout the duration, at least the foreseeable future, until there's something that kicks us around.
Do we have a U pick?
We do.
We're a little over this week.
We do, yes.
Look, Steve was awful. For those that are just tuning in, I encourage you to go back and watch the first 30, 35 minutes with Steve. It'll be up on our YouTube channel. All you have to do is search Georgia Southern Sports Network once this gets uploaded. He was awesome. That was great stuff.
This week's You Pick comes from our buddy Ryan. He wants to know, football-wise, and we've gone into this a little bit, but what is our favorite broadcast location that we have been at for football? Now, we've talked about best stadiums, but we haven't talked about the best broadcast location. We have to preface it outside of Paulson Stadium.
Oh, okay. I was going to.
Yeah.
Okay. Because that's pretty. Even the year or two that we were up on the roof.
Oh, I love the
really
roof.
Good vantage point.
I love the roof until it rained.
Okay, if I can't say that one.
Yeah.
All right.
Can't say that one.
I really liked Clemson.
Yeah.
You feel like you're in a cave a little bit because the stands overhang, but you're low enough where it's similar to this. You're back a little bit because it's 80,000 seat stadium. But height-wise, it's similar to this, but depth-wise, you're just pushed back and the stands kind of push out over you. Arkansas State is pretty good because of the clarity. I'm just thinking of the sight lines, not the booth. Not the booth. Look, this Arkansas State, it's a very small booth, but
I'm standing on stairs.
There's no obstructed view. The glass is completely clear. There's nothing that gets in your way. It is a very pretty view, especially with the water feature that they installed for 2019.
My favorite is...
App State's too high. It's beautiful, but it's way too high.
Yes, and too cold. The booth, you could fit a small village in, though. Maybe even not a small village, a medium village you can fit in there. My favorite is still Ole Miss. I don't know what it was about it. I absolutely loved it.
We showed up that night. That was gorgeous.
Yes.
Absolutely gorgeous.
Ole Miss is my favorite. I'm trying to think in conference. App's way too high. You look like you're looking straight down. Louisiana is tight. I'll be interested to see how Louisiana redoes theirs.
When we go, we'll probably have to go down there in 22, I would think. I don't know that it'll be done yet. I would think that it would have been started by then because they just announced the naming rights, $15 million over 15 years with Our Lady of Lourdes. When it gets done, it's going to be one of the premier venues in the entire group of 5. That's the one that probably needs the most work, and they'll be the first ones to tell you that. Look, Georgia State, you're in an end zone. We've covered that one. We're behind home plate. We've gone over that one. Yeah. Coastal's view is not too bad. Height-wise, similar to this.
Yeah. Coastal, there's only 2 problems I have with Coastals. One, it's just one big window that goes to one side, and so Terry can't really see because he's got 2 panes of glass he's trying to look through and the whole teal turf thing.
All right.
Hang on. We're going to go.
Okay, Texas State, the window, I don't think opens. But similar, it's a smaller booth, similar height-wise, maybe a little bit taller than
Texas
this.
State's okay.
One we don't know yet.
Okay,
ULM, we're up in the clouds.
Yeah.
But we haven't been to South yet because of the new stadium.
Oh, that's true.
So that'll be one we'll have to
check off Hancock-Whitney Stadium.
Sometime in October.
Troy is not bad. You have the Adam Prendergast refrigerator with every flavor of Coke in 13 countries.
Well, he's hoping that he can get that back to normal because last year they were only delivering 5 different brands.
Yeah, and he was pretty torn up about that.
Not happy. Not a happy guy.
If there's a Coke that you could imagine, Adam Prendergast has it. I'm convinced.
Yeah, so we go there, and then the next Thursday we go right back to Mobile.
We do.
Later on this year.
Correct. That indeed we do. So that's this week's You Pick. It's a good one. Yeah, thank you, Ryan. But that'll wrap up this week's edition of Inside Eagle Nation. Again, it went a little bit longer than we normally do, about an hour and 15 minutes this time. This might be our longest Inside Eagle Nation episode yet.
Again, go back and watch Steve's portion. You can either watch it here on the archive video, but we do encourage you to go to our YouTube channel, subscribe. You can go back and watch any of the interviews that we conducted at Sunbelt Football Media Day with Coach Lunsford, Todd Bradley, Glenn, J.D. King, and all the other coaches. All of our episodes of Inside Eagle Nation will be there. All of our coaches' shows going forward in 2021. And sometime next week, I'll have to figure a spot because I'll have to...
Yeah, you got to take a little nappy poo in here.
Yeah, the odds are it's going to be a week from today because we'll already be up here. So I may as well just...
I don't know if you want to do it a week from today.
Why is that?
Oh, a week from today. Got
Yeah.
it. Okay. I don't know why I was thinking...
What were you thinking?
You said Saturday. And I was like, well, you're going to run into the Irk Russell Classic, so...
Yeah, but I'd be able to let the sound of football drift me off into dream world.
Yeah, my guess is that's not going to drift you off into dream world.
Why did you think this was Saturday?
I don't know. My days are all messed up. I feel like I'm in Central Time. I don't know.
For those that haven't had a chance to donate or would like to give a little bit more money to the Irk Russell Fund for the 2021 year, just go to my Twitter or Facebook page. Still a couple of more days. We'll take donations from that standpoint until the 20th, and I'll pick a day. It's probably going to be next Monday where I'll have to find a spot at Paulson. And for those that are getting ready ticket-wise for the season, donor packages were going out today. So I think that everybody should have them at least by the end of the week regarding your tickets for 21 and everything else that came with your donor package for the Irk Russell Fund. If for some reason you don't by the end of the week, just contact the ticket office. They'll get you in.
Have you decided your location? I've seen a couple of your choices. You had snuggled up with Irk out there in front of the FOC.
Yeah, we had the
You were down at the end zone. You were in the student. Were you in the student section or the near side?
No, we were near side.
Okay.
There's a couple of other pictures from that evening's photo op that I'm debating.
Oh, you did a whole photo shoot.
We did a photo shoot.
Oh.
Well, there's some that I'm debating on whether or not to share because I don't want to get into trouble. But
Oh.
but it'll probably be at some point next week where I camp out somewhere here. And
Inside Eagle Nation After Hours.
that's the one that people really want to watch. That's the one people really want to see. But do appreciate all the generosity for getting us to that point. And I hope that it's a signal that this is going to be a really good year in a lot of different ways.
Again, we will keep you abreast of everything going on this Saturday with the second preseason scrimmage for Georgia Southern football. That'll be at 9:30 here at Allen E. Paulson Stadium.
I guess we'll do tight ends and linemen next week for our position preview.
Sure.
Just combine all those, then we'll go skill in the secondary, and then
go in the trenches.
Go specialists, and then we're 19 days away from kick.
Going to be catching up in the next couple of weeks. End of this week, I'll be catching up with Phil Steele to give your in-depth preview of what 2021 is going to look like. That'll air next Monday.
When Phil knows our team better than we know our team.
Yeah, when I'm sitting there taking notes of Phil talking about our team, I'm like, wow, wait a minute.
So wait a minute. You think he's going to be where? Because we don't have that one. And we've talked to Chad.
Wait, who?
Phil's been with us the last 3 years now.
I think this will be the third year, yeah.
Okay. And he is somebody who gives basically his life for college football, putting out the magazine. It is a year-long project. When he gets done with the year that he's on, it's immediately to the next year. He works in all of his media obligations, and we're so happy that he can fit us in and talk to us about what he thinks 21 is going to hold for the Eagles.
So I'll be catching up with him later on this week, and you will hear that conversation coming up next week on the edition of Inside Eagle Nation. But for now, for the voice of the Eagles, Danny Reed, this is Colin Lacy saying so long, everybody.
You've been listening to Inside Eagle Nation, powered by Learfield, the official podcast of Georgia Southern Athletics.